The topic for today is a good eye for things that really matter. Anyone remember comedians Abbott and Costello in their conversation, the classic recording of their discussing a baseball game? It's usually recognized by the words, "Who's on first?" followed by a chaos of misunderstandings of what each is trying to say. Another amusing description of baseball I heard some years ago goes like this. It's about the ins and outs of the game. You might title it "The Ins and Outs of the Game." Let's see if I can get it right. Each man that's on the side that's in goes out. And when he's out, he comes in. And the next player goes in until he's out. And when three players are out, the side that's out comes in, and the side that's been in goes out and tries to get those coming in out. Sometimes you get players still in and not out. When both sides have been in and out 9 times, including the not outs, that's usually the end of the game. How many times have you attended Little League baseball at some time or other? When I was a youth in Little League, that was a few years ago, I was one of the 2 pitchers of our team. For years, when he was a young man, my dad was the key pitcher for the town team in Woodbury, Connecticut, and it's no surprise then that Dad spent hours teaching me to be a pitcher for my team in Little League, how to throw curveballs and other tricky things to outsmart the batter. I remember each time I wound up to deliver a pitch, there would be raised voices from the opposing team players and from spectators and from the coaches shouting to the batter, "Good eye, good eye." I can still hear it now as clear as a memory. For the batter up, having a good eye means being able to see and evaluate in a glance whether the speeding ball that just left the pitcher's hand is going to be one to swing at or not, whether it is going to be counted as a strike or counted as a ball. It takes a good eye to tell the difference, and a good eye to swing and hit the ball when the pitch is good. Little did I know that having a good eye would someday be a profound biblical principle urged upon me in my faith journey. Our need for having a good eye goes far beyond the ball field to having a good eye for telling the difference between the important things of life and the less important things, and to quickly recognize the difference. It isn't always that we have loads of time to decide something. Having a quick and good eye for telling the difference between taking actions that are wise and ones that are unwise. Having a quick and good eye for telling the difference between what will help or heal and what will further damage relationships that we have with someone. The well-known Serenity Prayer was written years ago by one of my seminary professors, Reinhold Niebuhr. The Serenity Prayer is, in essence, a prayer for having a good eye, for telling the difference between things we can't change and things we should try to change. Many folks have heard it before. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Oh, if we only had that kind of wisdom in our world all the time. If only we had that kind of good eye that makes the right choices between the ball and the strike, between right and wrong, between moral and immoral, between ethical and unethical, between faithful and unfaithful. Jesus has a message straight from God for the people of his times, and it's also a message for us today. But Jesus is very straightforward in saying how often we get it wrong. In a sense, how often we have a bad eye rather than a good eye for understanding, accepting, and applying to everyday life what he is teaching us. We often miss the ball even when it hits us. And then we wonder what went wrong. And we're slow to take the responsibility. It's a lot easier to blame others. We are told in the scripture this morning that Jesus taught the things of God to people primarily using parables. Very simply, a parable is a story or illustration to illustrate truth and to make it clearer. Just as a picture can sometimes be worth 1,000 words, so can a short story that makes a point. Most parables have one major point to make, though that one insight can often find unlimited applications to many real-time different situations. In Matthew 13, verse 10 and following, the disciples come to Jesus and ask simply, "Why do you speak in parables?" And his answer in verse 13 is, "The reason I speak to them in parables is that seeing they do not understand, and hearing they do not listen, nor do they understand." And later in verse 17, Jesus says he is telling us things that people have longed to know about the meaning of their lives and God's purposes from the ancient times. Now that should grab our attention. Now that some of the answers to our deepest needs and questions are being given, we need to have what I would call a good eye. A good eye so we don't miss out and strike out sometimes, and in baseball terms, strike out when we could instead hit a home run in our lives and in our world more often than we do. I believe that we can learn from the parables Jesus taught, and I also believe that life today is filled with God's parables if we have a good eye to notice them and learning the lessons of God from them. Many sermons have roots in the parables of everyday life, related to the biblical ones. Writer Reverend Robert Raines, who used to live in Guilford, perhaps he still does, I'm not sure, has this to say: "Help me to see all the cartoons people make by being alive, to delight in the vigor of the young, people out to make the world, and the twinkle in the eye of one of elder years who remembers the old days. And thanks," Robert Raines says, "thanks for those who love me in the common ways of a smile, or a letter, or a phone call, and all the gentle touches of hand and heart. Thanks for those who confront me with anger and hurt and pain and remind me that I don't always see them as I go by." Unquote. The point of my quoting those words is this: life is absolutely crammed full every day with parables and things of God to be learned if we only have a good eye to notice. Many who race through the day, filled with worries and deadlines, and pressured by the expectations of others, often come to the end of those busy days having overlooked many of the lessons of life that could be theirs, missing out on having a good eye for knowing God's expectations of them. plus the beauty and the insights and the wisdom of everyday parables happening all around that could have been harvested by simply having a good eye. It's something worth praying for. Imagine waking up each morning and saying, no, praying, something like this. What new thing have you for me today, O God? A new song, a new thought, a new hope, a new birth, a new insight, a new task to which you are calling me? Oh, give me, O God, oh, give me a good eye for what you will be showing me today.